giáo sư của Đại học Montreal, Canada và làm chuyên về lĩnh vực can thiệp thần kinh cũng như nghiên cứu. Và giáo sư Alan Way cũng đã có nhiều lần để sang Việt Nam cùng với tổ chức các hội thảo về điện quang can thiệp thần kinh. Thì hôm nay với cái chủ đề là nghiên cứu TOBAS, khía cạnh đạo khoa học và đạo đức trong điều trị dị dạng thông động tĩnh mạch, thì giáo sư Alan Way sẽ có 2 bài, và cái phần phiên thảo luận cuối buổi thì giáo sư Alan Way sẽ có mặt để cùng thảo luận với chúng ta. Xin kính mời.
Hi again. So in this second presentation, I would like to speak about how we manage actually cerebral AVM in Montreal. Not only in Montreal, but I think it's a fairly interesting way, and I wanted to share that with you because I think it's more original than usual, speaking about brain AVMs and how to treat them and so on, and probably more interesting. So I'll try to advance. Yeah. So again, conflict of interest, no conflict of interest related to this presentation. Again, our department received some academic and research grants from different companies. So some disclosures actually after the conflict of interest. Note that there is 2 centers actually which are leading TOBAS. One is in France and it's in Brest, and the other one is in Montreal, Canada, and one is dealing with the American Center, or the North American, the American Center, and the other one with the French Center. And in Brest, they received some financial support from several companies as shown. So why there was a need to try to do something with AVM? And obviously because of Aruba. I'm pretty sure you know the study Aruba, which actually, I'm not entering in details those curves, but basically if you take the result as randomized or as treated, actually you have more chance to harm a patient if you treat the patient. So, and actually it's a little bit different, you know. Generally we speak in number need to treat, but here, because it was a negative hypothesis, you know, the results were the number need to harm were only 3, and you can see that the 2 curves, you know, are quite widely separated, meaning that the treatment is actually more dangerous or more with more side effect than the observation itself. So it's more dangerous, in other words, to treat an AVM, or that was the conclusion at least of Aruba. But we have to advance from that, because this is not a complete answer. It's definitely put the table on, you know, Aruba, and we have to raise the question to what we should do now with AVM. And obviously now the ball is more in the park of the people treating AVM, just to justify where, when, and how we should do that if we want, or we think it's still valid to treat AVM. So obviously Aruba has to be considered as a starting point, not an end point, because a lot of questions emerge. What about ruptured AVMs? Aruba, they excluded ruptured AVM. Also a question, and we'll see with the results of Aruba, obviously there is treatment of easy AVMs, quote, easy. The question is obviously remaining. And why the question is remaining? Because that's according to the grade, you know, that they if you do subgroups here of the study of Aruba, you can see that in grade 1, actually, there might be a benefit. You see the here, it's on the good side, let's say, of the line, whether grade 2, 3, and 4 were on the bad side. But so there might be argument that it's worth trying to do a study at least with good grade, but not only, as we'll see. So, and some other question we can ask is, what is the role, for instance, of embolization? Because it's very complex, the treatment of AVM. Obviously, there is surgery, there is radiotherapy, there is embolization, or a mix eventually of the three, and generally embo is pre-surgery and so on. But what is the exact place of embolization? So TOBAS was a fruit of the reflection of 4 doctors, basically. 3 of those, Elsa, Jean-Christophe, and Tim, were fellows in our department, and they were supervised for this work by Jean-Raymond. All 3 are staff now. Elsa is a neurosurgeon working in Brest. Jean-Christophe is an interventional neuroradiologist working in Brest. Tim is a neurosurgeon working in Edmonton, Alberta, and this group was led by my colleague Jean-Raymond. So the idea was to come with something very easy to use, try to include all AVM, was very pragmatic, and try to be as scientific as possible. The TRI protocol was published in Trials Open Access, and I think that was already in 2015 or something like that. So TOBAS is, in fact, so as written on this slide, 2 randomized studies and a registry. So the first randomization study is treatment versus observation. It's kind of Aruba. The second randomization is embolization, pre-surgery, or radiotherapy, yes or no. And when the patient or the AVM is not randomizing 1 or 2, it goes to registry, which is treatment or observation. We'll see anyway how this works. So the first randomization is intervention versus observation. And the hypothesis here is different than Aruba, which was a negative hypothesis, stipulating that treatment was more harmful than observation. Here is the opposite. We believe that intervention will reduce the risk of death or dependence as compared to medical treatment. And we'll see later on that it's a 10-year follow-up. And the randomization 2 will focus, as said previously, on the role of embolization prior to surgery or radiosurgery. And here the embolization, we believe, will allow us to increase occlusion rate without increasing morbidity, mortality, which means that it's useful, basically. And if the team, say, team being the people who take care of the patient with AVM, so if they decide, for instance, that there should not be any intervention, then the patient is in observation registry, and if they say need absolutely intervention, it go in treatment registry. Then, therefore, we can capture all the patient we see. So, bottom line, I'm sure you didn't understand truly what I was saying, and it seems complex. But we'll see through example and we'll do it together that actually it flows naturally, and it's pretty simple because it's step by step through question. So here are the questions, but we'll see more in detail through a case later on. So the first question we are asking is the patient being considered for curative treatment? If we believe treatment cannot or cure cannot be achieved, or treatment cure cannot be achieved, then we say no, and the patient will go directly into the registry of observation. If we believe that the patient is considered for curative treatment, then there is another question: what is the primary curative method plan for this patient? And we have to choose one of the three, which is embolization, surgery, or radiation therapy. And so when we have chosen one of the three, the system asks you another question: given the lack of randomized evidence, curative treatment are beneficial. Is conservative management a reasonable alternative option? Meaning, would you agree not to treat this patient? If you are absolutely convinced you should treat the patient, so you will answer no, so it go into a registry treatment. If you believe there is a choice between treatment and conservative management, then you can have randomization and you are in curative or conservative management. And finally, when the patient is in curative treatment, and if it's not embolization, you can randomize embolization pre-surgery or pre-radiosurgery. So let's go through an example, because I understand it's not so obvious like that. So this is a case of a 22-year-old patient who obviously bled, big bleeding from this AVM, from this temporoparietal or parietal AVM on the right side. So as we can see, it's pretty diffuse, and the supply is coming from the MCA, from the posterior cerebral artery, and from the anterior cerebral artery. And treatment might not be so easy, but probably could be done. 4 months later, so when the patient has recovered and we see the cicatrization here of the bleeding, he was presented at a weekly round. And then we go to this website, and we decide to question what we should do. So first question we were asked in this case: is the patient being considered for curative treatment? Yes, he's 22, he has bled. We believe we can obtain a cure. Might not be easy, but it's possible. So definitely yes. So no is a cross through here, and we go the step below. So then the question which was asked is, because we answered yes, what is the primary curative method plan for this patient? And here we decided to do surgery. That was what was decided on. I don't know if I did something wrong. Okay, so the patient was, the surgery was decided for this patient. And so the next question: given the lack of randomized evidence, curative treatment are beneficial. Is conservative management a reasonable alternative option? So here the group believed that we should, because the patient was 22, and we should eventually, but he was 22, but the AVM was a difficult AVM to be treated. Then we decided that there is place for randomization, or there is place for observation, because obviously this is a very difficult treatment and very risky treatment to obtain a cure. So it was decided that we had randomization. And when we had randomization, finally the randomization, we found curative treatment. So it was in the group of curative treatment, then we know it's already surgery. So the question here, the second randomization, is should we do an AMBO pre-surgery or not, or we should randomize yes or no. And here the surgeon said, I'm not operating this patient if you don't reduce this AVM. So randomization was not a good option. And we go for embolization directly here in this case. So this patient, for instance, was randomized here into randomized 1, but not randomized 2, and he is not in the registry here. Here are the hypotheses now. So the first randomization, the first hypothesis is treatment of cerebral AVM can decrease the number of disabling neurological. So it's defined by an MRS superior to 2 from 25 to 15% within 10 years. And to have this hypothesis, we will need 540 patients. And for the randomization 2, we believe that embolization is useful and it will reduce the number of treatment failure, failure to achieve cure from 20% to 10%. And with this, we need also quite a number of patients, 440 patients. So right now, TOBAS is working pretty well. There is 21 centers in France, 3 in Canada, 3 in the US, 2 in Brazil, and 1 in Chile. So there is only for the moment in France and America, North and South America. So far the recruitment is not bad. As you can see, we have, trying to move that, whoops. So the recruitment is not bad. We have recruited almost 1,200 patients since probably we're very close to 1,200 patients right now, because that was the number in March 2022. So obviously there is the majority is in the registry. So there is approximately 45% of the patients which are in observation, which will give us some very good information on natural history. There is approximately 35% on treatment registry. This means that we decided upfront without any randomization to treat those patients. Randomization 1, a little bit like Aruba, is approximately 15% of those patients. So it's probably around 200 patients right now. And randomization 2 is approximately 15 patients where we decide, obviously, to treat or who were randomized for treatment. That's why, obviously, this 15, if you make the addition, it's more than that, but it's because this is not a number you can add to those numbers here. So the recruitment is doing pretty well. And right now, actually, at the time I'm presenting, there are some results already which are submitted for publication. However, I cannot present you any result because apart from the recruitment, because they are not published yet. But I hope you understood what I was mentioning. And again, I think we have to try to do our best to try to find this quote or try to follow this quote of Bertolt Brecht. Thank you very much.